Sports Fest Rick Horrow into the $1.3 trillion business of sports. You're on the record in conjunction with CCON, Sports Entertainment Innovation, the best in the business, and USA Today, honoring today friend, mentor, Senator, Governor Bob Graham. A simple truth from his perspective: democracy grew stronger through active participation, and after his retirement from the U.S. Senate, he founded the Bob Graham Center for Public Service at the University of Florida. In 2006, he gave individuals skills and opportunities to participate meaningfully in civic life. Guided by his vision, the center encourages engagement, strengthens understanding of democracy, and inspires students to lead. At their 20th anniversary, I was absolutely honored on behalf of his wife, Adele, and the 4 kids and 11 grandkids of the Grahams to testify about his impact on sports, but generally talk about the vision of sports in Florida and around the country. Here is that testimonial, very well deserved, at the Center, Bob Graham's Center in Gainesville most recently. Hope you enjoy.
If you've ever enjoyed a game at a stadium in South Florida, you felt the impact of our next speaker. Rick Horrow is a pioneer in public-private partnerships and the architect of $20 billion in major projects, and currently serves as a strategic development advisor at Foley & Lardner. He advised the biggest leagues in sports, taught at Harvard Law, and worked with Governor Graham to help revitalize sports in South Florida. Alongside Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra, I have him to thank for my beloved Miami Heat. Please give a warm welcome to the sports professor himself, Rick Horrow.
Thank you. I'll tell you one thing, that is one tough act to follow, really. One tough act to follow. And I'm sure the family is incredibly proud. Mrs. Graham and family, thank you very much for allowing me to be part of a tremendous evening celebrating my mentor and probably the best politician and human being Florida has had and ever had. And I am a small part, I'm not worthy, based on all of these people in this room paying an incredible tribute, but it is important to me to be able to tell my small story and how integral Bob Graham was in it, regardless of the credit he takes. And of course, the advantage of the man is you don't hear Bob Graham about the father of Florida sports, but trust me, over the last 50 years, my experience, he was. This is the first ticket of the Miami Dolphins. If you're a Dolphin fan, you know that they were supposed to win every game. 1972, they were undefeated. They didn't read the memo. You're supposed to do that every year. They have been mediocre. I was 11 years old, and I was given a stack of tickets by my dad at Mount Sinai Hospital in Miami. He was to pass from cancer 3 weeks later. He knew that this was the last time I would see him, but I didn't. And he gave me this stack of tickets and said, we're going to go see a Major League Football team starting in September called the Miami Dolphins. We're going to go to 8 home games every year. Going to be really excited about it. He didn't make it, but for me, sports as a life-defining passion was born. And just to put it in perspective, that ticket, $5. The average Major League Baseball salary at the time, $29,000. Joe Robbie, you may remember him as the irascible, I'll call him a lot worse, but it was irascible owner of the Miami Dolphins. It cost $10,000 for him to buy into and ultimately take control of that team. So we understand the difference in economics. So that was 1966. Fast forward 10 years later, and I'm off to Harvard Law School. And I am going to bring sports to South Florida, hell or high water. And so what is my first instinct? To reach out to then Florida Senator Bob Graham, state of Florida senator. And he didn't know me from Adam. I'm some young punk from Northwestern University, and I'm going to go to Harvard. And he was Harvard, I'm Harvard, so, can I see him? We spent about 2 hours in Miami Lakes. And he said, look, I understand what you're going to try to do, and I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it, but it's going to be difficult. There's a presumption of failure. I can list you the 18, we went through them together, failed stadiums, arenas, teams, franchises, 50s, 60s, 70s, and there's going to be another one, but you're going to have to take 8 steps up to get 7 steps back and maybe net positive. Second, everybody's a transplant. You're either from Havana or New York or everywhere in between. And if, by the way, you're a fan, you're not from Pittsburgh and a Steeler. You're not from Chicago and a Bear fan. Miami was very unique. There was no social vesting that's enough to generate significant dollars for a sports franchise. And then number 3, which is something that I scoffed at, but then, aged 50 years over the first couple of years when I came back, was he said in his own way, politics are kind of turbulent here in South Florida. The politics are a combination of Little Havana, Big Havana, New York, Tammany Hall, and everything in between. But he said, look, go to Harvard Law, get your degree, and when you're done, come see me, and we'll figure out what to do. All right, so I'm off trying to figure things out. And by the way, he said, just remember this. Here are things you got to keep in mind. Be honest, persevere, be tenacious, have a passion, and listen, because you can do the most good for the most people. A common theme. So a year later, I'm at Harvard Law, and I'm trying to figure out what to do in sports. And so my idea was everybody's got to write a third-year thesis, which is not inconsistent with law school or anywhere else. And I told the criminal law professor, then dean, here's a great idea. Grew up in Florida, saw a hockey game. That's not sports, that's fighting on skates. So let me do a thesis on sports violence and the interaction of the criminal law. And he said, that's a brilliant idea, but 2 problems. A, there's no such thing as sports law. And B, if there is, we don't teach it at Harvard. Well, I decided not to give him my reaction, but I thought about it. And I said, let me do this. Let me have a bet with you. I have nothing to lose. I'm going to play you in a squash game. Think it's a vegetable, grew up in Miami, never played it. And by the way, if you win, then I'm going to suck it up, probably take a gun to my head, be a normal lawyer, and you're going to be done with me. If I win, you're going to write me a hall pass for Fenway Park and then Schaefer Stadium and everywhere else, and we're going to do this thesis together, and Harvard Law is going to be a sports law capital, and we're going to go on. Side story, by the way, this is quick. It's not a Bob Graham story, but it is interesting. I befriended a squash partner in the halls of Dunster Hall, which is a place, Dunster House, a place where Bob Graham, walked the halls at Harvard. I was lucky enough to do too. Turned out he was my mentor and squash coach. John Roberts, Chief Justice, roommate of mine for 2.5 years. So he indirectly is a part of the story. I'm just throwing the name out, but he recognized the fact that he would help on all this. Won that game, came back to South Florida, and it's 1979. Bob Graham, first term as governor. I said in my first meeting, I'm back. I'm back. You got to help. What are you going to do? So we need to create a sports authority and commission. Gave him the blueprints. Here's what Pittsburgh did. Here's what Dallas did. Here's what Denver did. And by the way, I know you're governor, and this is inherently a local issue, but I think you probably still have some stroke in Dade County and Miami. So can we get this done? And he said, remember the advice I gave you about tenacity, et cetera, A. B, Joe Robbie is a bit of a difficult guy, the owner of the Dolphins, so good luck. And C, I'm a phone call away. Well, little did I know that the phone call away would keep going farther north as he became senator after governor, but then he said, very important, I have your back. Bob Graham saying I have your back means a lot. That picture, and that meant a lot to me. So it's 1980, and I start the sports authorities in Miami as the youngest executive director, the first one. 47 elected officials, 114 appointed officials, hired and fired by 8 different sports authorities. Joe Robbie wanted his stadium first. We wanted a tennis facility. We wanted an NBA franchise. We wanted basketball. We wanted hockey. We wanted 18 different locations. If you know Miami and South Florida, it's a real estate play. Everybody wanted to make money, and we didn't have facilities. Why? Presumption of failure. Everybody remembered. Governor and first year as senator, I must have called him 10 times. And he took the call every time. And I said, look, I don't want to bother you, but I don't know who the hell to talk to. Would you please talk to me and help me? Honestly, he was there. He was always there. Scene shifted, April 21, 1987. We're in a meeting, long story, don't have time today, don't want it to. It's not about me today, it's about Bob Graham. We're in the offices of the NBA commissioner, David Stern. And if you all remember the history, there were going to be 3 expansion franchises in the NBA. Charlotte looked good, Minnesota looked good, and Orlando looked good, the Magic. And they always wanted an odd number to make sure there was total numbers is even. Ted Arison, the founder of Carnival Cruise Lines, went to the commissioner and said, how much? Because I don't know if a basketball is stuffed or blown up. I don't know what it means, but civically, it'll be important to me, it'll be important to my cruise line, et cetera, et cetera. How much is it going to cost? Now, let's remember the Los Angeles Lakers sold for what? $10 billion last week. All right, $10 billion. So David Stern says $32.5 million. Ted Arison gets up and walks out. And I've known David Stern, and I said, hey, by the way, the weather looks really great. Who's going to be in the playoffs? And he said, look, the only reason I'm here is the guy that just went down and left, so you better go find him. 7 minutes went by, longest 7 minutes. He comes back, Ted Arison, and he walks in, and he says, look, you know, I always went across the street, across Fifth Avenue, to try to buy a franchise in the NBA for Miami. But you're the only one that's selling, so I have no choice. Took out his checkbook, stroked a $32.5 million check on the spot, and I don't care what anybody else says, that's the day the Heat was born. And I guarantee you that Bob Graham was there in spirit. So when it is November 5th of 1988, his second year as senator, and we begin our 19-game losing streak with the LA Clippers, that's the first ticket to Miami Heat. So all of y'all who say that you were involved in the early days, no, I was involved in the early days. Bob Graham was involved in the early days, and we were both there together. April 5, 1993, the Dodgers and the Marlins, first Marlins game. October 6, 1993, the Panthers and the Blackhawks, first hockey game. They're all in that period of time. Bob Graham, 38th governor, 1987 to 2008, his senatorial time. He transcended those times, and he significantly impacted all of sports. Very important to know. Fast forward, 2001, I'm in Miami Lakes. I'm seeing what I was hoping as an old friend and mentor. I'm full of myself. Harvard Law, I'm teaching. I do stuff on CNN on a regular basis. I'm in the sports business. I'm there to ask him to sign my book that I had written. I had written 4 of them. And he says, be humble, accept your accomplishments, remember honesty, perseverance, tenacity, passion, listening, and remember the key business principles that are in my books today. They're Bob Graham's principles. They're Bob Graham's spirit. And when you think about it, the 50 years since that first discussion that I had about sports, the average NFL ticket, we're starting kickoff in a half hour, $600. The average baseball salary, it's not $29,000, it's $2.9 million. That's even the lousy infielder. That's the averages. South Florida, and Florida itself, is the quickest, fastest growing sports state in the union. 9 major league sports franchises in the 4 major leagues. And the business itself, $1.3 trillion. Well, that day was the last time I saw the senator, but clearly it was just the beginning. And when you think about it, this gathering tells you everything you want to know about the year-long celebration and the 20-year history of this center as it relates to the memory of Bob Graham. The center is a living, breathing memorial about public service, policy, and leadership. And those who never met Senator Graham, as we've heard, share his values reflected in the mission of this center's work. What this center is doing, it seems to me, is uniquely preparing a whole group of civic and business leaders for the maelstrom of turbulent politics and civic duty. The idea that this is a transcendent organization. How do you help the legacy? Through financial support, through advocacy. It's not charity, it's shared responsibility for a common goal. The end of the day, if Senator Graham taught us anything, it's that the future is built not by chance, but by the investments we make in people. Tonight, not only the remembering the extraordinary example about enduring that his values are consistent with how you live your life. The 20th anniversary, in my mind, is not just a milestone, it's a reminder that at this time, preparing principal leaders is incredibly important for moving forward. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to have met Senator Graham personally, but all of us share a piece of his legacy. The best way we can honor him is by helping the center thrive for the next generation so that his lessons of service, integrity, and leadership continue to inspire well beyond tonight. I miss Bob Graham. I know you all do too. Thank you very much.